Hello everyone. I welcome all of you on this wonderful program which is jointly organized by GSTV and HB Kapadia group of schools, Paas Thawanu Panchamrit. Myself, Karthik Mundra, economics faculty from HB Kapadia group of schools. This session is specially designed for the students who wants to get good marks in their examination. Paas Thawanu Panchamrit is the program in which you will be getting few very good tips which you should know if you want to get good marks in your examination. The whole of the session I have divided into 3 different parts. In first part, we are going to discuss about the MCQ and paper pattern which you should know about economics. In the second part, we are going to talk about the MCQ tips, how to write MCQs, the tips for writing the MCQs. In the next part, we will be discussing about the important question answers part, some tips which will be helpful to you during the examination, and last but not least, the 3 options I am going to give you. I have divided the students into 3 categories who wants to secure very good marks. So first let me start with the paper pattern and the blueprint. Students, here you can see the paper style of the 12th economics. You all know very well that section A, section B, section C, D and E, there are 5 sections will be having into your examination. Section A would be of 20 marks. This is MCQ. You are lucky enough to get 20 marks for the MCQ. This is the very big advantage for the students this time who are going to appear for the examination. After this, we have section B. In section B, you will be having answer the following questions in 1 or 2 sentences. There will be 10 questions asked and you have to write to the point. The next is section C, answer the following question in short. This will be of 24 marks. And C, here you are given options. You have to write any 12 out of 16. Each will be of 2 marks. They may be asking you the questions like limitations, any 2, any 3. The measures, any 2, any 3. Either you have to state or you have to explain in short. After this, you have section D. In section D also, you will be getting options like you have to attempt on any 7 out of 10, each of 3 marks, which makes it 21 marks. In D section, in the same manner as section C, there will be the questions like you have to write the limitations, the measures, the advantages, the short notes, but in the fullest manner. Here, the length of the answer increases. And then comes section E. Section E will be of 25 marks, each of 5 marks, and here you will be getting option, you have to write any 5 out of 7. Understood? This section is of the utmost important. And in this paper style discussion session, I will be telling you which chapters are of more important and from which chapters you have to learn these 5 marks. This is going to lessen your burden by 50 to 60%, I assure you, right? So next, now we move to the blueprint part, which is once again more important because blueprint part will help you to know from which chapters you are going to get which questions. Here you can see the blueprint. In here the chapter numbers are given. Here the name of the chapters are given. Here section A, B, C, D, E. Here the total marks. Let me tell you, dear students, this is the actual paper pattern, but this year you will be having the general options. So with general options, the weightage of the chapter increases, which I will be telling you in the next chart, right? So you can see that in graphs and economics, you do not have any MCQ to be asked. Section B, C, D and both 3 of these sections have questions. From section B, there is 1 question. Section C, there are 2 questions asked. Section D, there is 1 question. From E section, there is no question asked. C, here your burden gets reduced. And so the chapter weightage is of 8 marks. Before we go further, I want to tell you one thing. The paper style that we are seeing here is not the exact paper style. There may be variation of 1 or 2 marks, because this is something observed by the teachers and they have prepared this. The government has not given any exact paper style. There may be variation of 1 or 2 marks, right? So let's go further. Chapter number 2, Indicators of Growth and Development. Here you can see that from section A, means MCQ part, there are 2 questions. In section B, there is 1 question. In section C, there are 2 questions. And then section D, there is only 1 question, and makes the chapter weightage of total 10 marks, right? We go to chapter number 3, which is Money and Inflation, one of my favorite chapter. I'll tell you why. First, one MCQ is asked. There is no question from B. Then we have section C, there is 1 question. In D, there is no question. And E, they are asking option. They are asking in options. 2 questions will come and we have to select any one. This is for normal paper style, but this time you will be getting 2 questions from this chapter and you can attempt any of them or both of them. This makes it my favorite because this is the shortest chapter we have in this book and easiest too. There are only 3 topics. First you have of regarding barter system, then about money, and then about inflation. So if you clear your 3 concepts, you will master this chapter and your 2 questions will be covered in section E. We move to the next chapter, that is chapter number 4, Banking and Monetary Policy. Here 1 MCQ is going to be asked, 2 questions from B section is going to be asked, 1 from C section, and here the point is given on 1. That means they will be giving us the options. This makes this chapter important because here from D section 2 questions are going to be asked, right? In E section there is no question, which makes this chapter of 8 marks. We move to the chapter number 5. This is poverty. Chapter number first section A is there. 1 question is going to be asked from section A, means 1 MCQ. 2 questions from section B, and there will be option in section C if this is given as a star. Then in D section there is no question, so you are not supposed to do question number 4. You understanding my point, beta? The next part is E section, 1 question will come. Now in this chapter, you know very well that long answers are given. Indicators, causes, measures. You just have to learn these head points. If you write the head points in proper manner, there will not be any problem in writing the answer. You got the point? My first preference is that you should read from within the textbook. You should learn from the textbook, and then you have to write the textbook words in the answers to secure full marks. So here in case from the summary also you learn all the head points, you will be able to write the answer asked from this chapter, and this makes it 10 marks. Here we take a short break, and after break we will start with the next chapter. Thank you. Students, in the episode of Pasthavanu Panchamrit, we were discussing about the paper pattern and we have done it till chapter number 5. Let's begin. Now we have the chapter number 6, which is unemployment. This is also one of the longest chapter among the book. We have 2 MCQs from this chapter. Then in B section we have 1 question. Then C. In section C we have 2 questions and with star. It means at least 3 questions are going to be asked from this chapter. So note it down, you have to finish question number 3 of this chapter, the textual exercise. After this we have section D, chapter number, section D, 1 question is going to be asked. From section E there is no question, but still the chapter is of the weightage of 10 marks. So this chapter is also very important. When you see that there are 2 questions coming from B, what you have to do is you have to complete the question number 2 of that chapter's textual exercise. This will give you a very good confidence that yes, we have done this much thing, 2 questions will come, we will be able to solve it. In the same goes in section C, D as well as E. Why? Because as I told you earlier, you will be having the options. This time you have general options, so I want you people to utilize this advantage. We go forward, chapter number 7, population. In this, we have one MCQ from section A. One question will be asked in section B. You can imagine which question it must be. Maybe define birth rate, define death rate, or its formula. Then in section C, there is no question, but we will be having the question from section D, one question from section D, and an optional question in section E. Means there will be at least 2 questions asked from this chapter. Now students, you can take idea of which questions may be asked from this chapter. Maybe it is gender ratio, and maybe one of the finest famous question, that is reason for high birth rate and low death rate. You have to complete these questions very well because they will be asked in this examination. After this, we have chapter number 8, the agriculture sector. Here, there is no question from section A or section B, but we have one question from each of the section. Means one question in section C, one in section D, and one in section E. Most likely, they may ask the importance of agriculture sector, the causes, high productivity question. So you have to write it, you have to prepare it from the summary of the chapter. I suggest you to go through the summary because all the points are given in that summary box. You will be able to easily mug up those answers from the summary. And after this, we have chapter number 9, the foreign trade. In foreign trade, we have one MCQ. There is no question from question number 2, that is B section. We have 2 questions in section C, and in D section we will be having 1 question, and if it is written as a star, it means at least 2 questions are going to be asked from this chapter. Section D means question number 4. There is no question asked from E section, means question number 5. So you have to prepare this accordingly, right? The next is chapter number 10, the industrial sector. One MCQ from question number 1, section A. No question from B section. 2 questions again from section C. See, it is of how much importance. It is very important that whichever chapter is given as 2 numbers, you have to learn all the questions from that section. We go further, 1 question from section D and no question from E. This makes the weightage of 8 marks. The next is chapter number 11. This is the last chapter, students, of your book, Emerging Issues in Indian Economy. Chapter number A section, you will have 1 MCQ, 1 question from section B, no question from section C, but in D you will be having 2 questions, and in E you will be having 1 question. I have seen that they ask a lot of questions, means from D and E you will be having at least 3 questions. So I request all of you to go through the urbanization and migration part of this chapter. I make this chapter the star of all the chapters, chapter number 11 and chapter number 7. Why? The reason I'll tell you in the next chart, where you will be coming to know that when the government is giving you the general options, which chapters are given the more importance, right? So let's move towards the next chart. Here, economics weightage with general options. Students are still confused. They do not know that if the extra options are given, which chapter is given the more weightage. In this chart, this confusion will be clear. You can see chapter number 1, graphs in economics, without option if it was of 8 marks, with option it is of 10 marks. Means there is an advantage of extra 2 questions. You must be thinking that, sir, if 2 questions are added, in which section it would be coming? This paper style has not been issued by the government yet. So we have to prepare accordingly. You have to take idea from these blueprints, means from which part they can ask the more questions. The next is indicators of growth and development. If it is without option, 10 marks. With options, it is of 13 marks. Next is chapter number 3, money and inflation. If without option it is of 8 marks, with option it is again of 10 marks. See, 2 or 3 marks they have added in most of the chapters. We see chapter number 4, there is no addition in this chapter, banking and monetary policy. Without option it was of 8 marks, with option also this is of 8 marks. Chapter number 5, poverty, without option it is of 10, with option it is of 13. You got the point? There is an addition of 3 marks. So dear students, here we have to take a short break. We will come after this break and will continue with the further topic. Don't go anywhere, stay tuned. Dear students, I'm hoping you are enjoying the session. We were discussing about the paper patterns as well as the weightage of the chapters. I welcome all of you once again in the Pasthavanu Panchamrit session. So let us start, let me continue with this. The next chapter that we have is chapter number 6, that is unemployment. Here you see that without option it is of 10 marks, with option this time it will be of 12 marks. The next chapter is chapter number 7, which is once again the star chapter. Why? Because here it was normally of 10 marks, but with options it has now become of 15 marks. There are very easy questions from this chapter. Concepts are very easy. You can learn and you can write on your own also. If you are not able to learn from the textbook, you can at least write something from your own and you can secure a very good marks in chapter number 7. This chapter alone gives you the whole 15 marks. Next is chapter number 8, agriculture sector. 10 marks, 10 marks, there is no change. Chapter number 9, foreign trade, which was normally of 8 marks, but now it has given the importance of 13 marks. You can see here also there is increment of 5 marks. So this is also important chapter. Foreign trade, there is no big rocket science in this. We all know very well international trade, foreign trade, exchange rate, everything related to this. We can write something on our own if you are not able to learn from this chapter, right? The next is chapter number 10, industrial sector, which was of 8 marks and now also of 8 marks. Once again, let me introduce the star chapter from the book. Chapter number 11, emerging issues in Indian economy, which was of 10 marks and now it carries 15 marks. So as I told you earlier, if you remember that from this chapter, questions regarding migration, urbanization will be asked. Their effect, positive, negative, meaning. So you have to learn this whole chapter and this will help you to secure at least 15 marks properly. 7 chapter population 15 marks, 11 chapter 15 marks, only 2 chapters are giving you the weightage of 30 marks, right? So students, now we will go further. In our next part, I am going to discuss about the tips of writing the MCQs. We know that well begun is half done. That means if you start anything in a very proper manner, you do not have to put the much efforts to accomplish it. As in when you get your paper, the first thing you are going to attempt is section A, MCQs, 20 marks. So there are some tips that I would like to share with you which will help you to pass all these 20 MCQs. There may be possibility that 1 or 2 questions they may ask from within the chapter. At that time, what will you do? So how we can use our logic, this thing I am going to tell you in this next session. Let's see. Important MCQs that can be solved using logics. There are 15 MCQs I have written in those charts. In these MCQs, some are of very much important, some are asked frequently, so I have put it on the board so you can verb it and you can have it in your board examination and you can write it. Let us talk about the first one. For which type of distribution is a diagram drawn? It is discrete. Students get confused between these 2 MCQs. If they are asking about the diagram, it is discrete. Please verb it just right now. Diagram, discrete. Diagram, discrete. The second one is, for which type of distribution is a graph drawn? When it is about the graph, you will use the continuous. Continuous would be the answer. These two are important questions, and so I have put it on the board. Now let's talk about the third question, which is which concept is qualitative. Now say think that I do not know the answer. You don't know the answer about this. So how you will use your logic? Just read the options. First option, national income growth rate. Second option, per capita income growth rate. The third option, economic growth. And the fourth is economic development. In above three options, we see that growth rate is the common, and we also know that growth rate or growth is something which we can count. So it is a quantitative in nature. So economic development becomes the answer, because this is something that we cannot count. This is the quality. And so this is which concept is qualitative? The economic development is a qualitative in nature. The next part is what is the maximum value of PQLI, Physical Quality of Life Index. It is a matter of laugh. Just look at the options. First is less than 100. How can you answer to the question when they are asking you the maximum value? Can we say less than 100 or more than 100? No, obviously not. That must be a perfect answer, like 100, 150, 200, something like this. See the D option, it is 0. Can we say the maximum value of PQLI may be 0? These three cannot be the answer. So even if I don't know the answer, I will mark 100. This can be my answer, and here it is my answer, right? The next, economic development is a dash of economic growth. Here you have to use your consciousness. पहले economic growth आता है और बाद में economic development. So first अगर economic growth आएगा तभी तो economic development आएगा. तो economic growth, after that economic development means economic development is a result. When economic growth came, then we can achieve economic development. So before you want to achieve economic development, every country have to start with economic growth. So the answer of this question will be result. You please mug up right now. Economic development is a result of economic growth, right? We move to the next part. Which of the following can be used as the best mean for storage of value? And look at the options. First is crops. Now please concentrate. They are talking about storage of value. Up to which time and for how long you can store the crops. This may not be answered because they are talking about storage of value. Animals cannot be stored because they die, they get sick. Minerals and stones, they are of different shapes. Koi chota, koi bada, that cannot be stored. So the coins are the most likely answer of this question. You got the point? From options, we can get idea of what answer might be. You should go behind the likely, most likely answer and you tick if you do not know the answer of this question. Seventh, which state had the lowest poverty in the year 2013 in India? Whichever year they are talking about, but just check here the options. Goa will be the answer because this is the tourism industry. The maximum tourism part comes from the Goa. So we know that Goa is the answer for this question. The next is question number 8. As per Indian Council of Medical Research, how much calories is required by the person in urban area? When they are talking about urban area, the answer is 2100. If they are talking about rural area, the answer is 2400 because in rural area, you need to work hard. There is a more physical work, and so the answer is 2400 for rural area, and for urban area it would be 2100. So dear students, here we end the session. The further discussion we will be having in our next episode of Pasthavanu Panchamrit. Thank you so much.